Hello everyone, friends. This is Crypto Coachera with you. Today I won't take up much of your time since it's Saturday evening and everyone wants to relax, but I have some interesting thoughts that I want to share with you. So if you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, be sure to subscribe, like the video, and follow me on Telegram if you haven't already. Basically, everything as usual. And let's move on to our ideas. Let's start with the fact that yesterday we discussed a correction, that a correction was likely to happen, and that the market was a bit overbought locally. And in principle, that's what happened. We already have this situation. Well, with Bitcoin, we're in a range. Yeah, so right now it's just sitting here. It's important for us that Bitcoin doesn't make new lows or new highs, but just stays in a range for a certain period of time, right? And during this time, altcoins will be feeling pretty good. With Ethereum, we saw a bit of a pullback, if you can call it that, around a few percent, which is absolutely within the normal range. If we measure from the high, we've corrected by a maximum of 5%, and it's about 3 to 4% correction. So that's within the scope of such a move. And the move we had, let's see, if we take it from this local low, it's about 26%. And if we look for more global lows, it's much more than that. So Ethereum has shown a really strong impulse, and that's definitely encouraging. By the way, I drew these zones yesterday in the video when I was recording, and you saw that, right? So we touched the first zone with this kind of wick. And what's very important, why such a wick? I mentioned that they wouldn't allow the price to go lower or stay below for long, right? So basically for us to get here, right, maybe we'll dip in again, although it's already pretty unlikely that we'll go specifically into this zone. And what they gave us here was a chance to accumulate, to trade a bit in this area, to accumulate, and then to continue trading further. No, now the market phase has changed and everyone got used to being given plenty of time to accumulate, and then there's a second bottom. So that's why everyone is so afraid. These corrections are made to shake people out, those who were thinking of exiting right here, right? Then they started believing in a move to 4 right away without any pullbacks or setbacks. Then they were given a correction so they could make a definite decision. And here people exited. Yes, right here they exited. Or it was to give an opportunity to those who wanted to enter the market. That is, those who are on the sidelines, those who are watching here around 2,500, because there are people like that. By the way, if you're one of those people, write about it in the comments. I don't think it's something shameful or, I don't know, some kind of secret. It's absolutely normal. That's how the market works. It's psychology. So there's nothing new here. So about the 2,500 mark, a guy messaged me personally saying he didn't buy at 2,500 and now he's asking what he should do. Should he buy at 3,500 or wait for a pullback to at least 3,000? Well, getting back to 3,000 would already be quite a positive scenario. Yes, maybe there will be some serious FUD and then we might drop to 3,000, but that would basically wipe out all this recent growth. Well, not all of it, there's support at that level, but it's unlikely in the current situation because, as I said, the market situation has changed suddenly like an hourglass flipping, and now everyone is interested in crypto, including Ethereum. Ethereum is actually very relevant right now, and everyone is waiting for some kind of dip to buy in. No one's going to get it. You'll see, no one's going to get it because we've already had a correction and maybe we'll trade sideways here for a bit or go a little lower. I admit that possibility because this zone is still relevant. For now, everything looks like we've had a correction, made a small retrace, and we're going to move on to new highs at 4,000. That's how quickly things change, friends. And I understand maybe some of you have FOMO, but you need to suppress that FOMO and try to find some conviction, yes, so that you can enter different assets. But as long as the market gives us these kinds of pullbacks, we need to take advantage of them. That's why I'm even recording this video on a Saturday evening, hoping that this information will be useful to someone. What idea do I have? In this video, besides the fact that you can pick up Ethereum or those altcoins I mentioned yesterday, we see that the stock market has now closed, the dollar made a slight rebound, and the S&P also closed pretty well overall. There was a slight correction. Well, as for the SP, the movement here is just out of this world. Yeah, the idea is that we have the ETH BTC chart, which is currently hitting new highs. If we look at the 4-hour time frame, well, I've already shown this chart, right? We've reviewed it, catching these kinds of pullbacks and trying to go long on them. So this is just one of the ideas that I'll also be working on, and later I'll share my results with you. What's the plan? I take some margin, allocate about 1.5 to 2% for myself an amount I'm comfortable managing. I open a 3x or 5x leverage position on futures and hold the position. So the ticker is also called Ethereum Bitcoin. It's available on all, unfortunately, centralized exchanges. Even though I'm not a big fan of centralized exchanges when it comes to trading, almost no DEX really lets us open this kind of position properly. Yeah, and you can hold it because there's a lot of potential here. Yes, we've already missed part of the move, you could say. I tried to get in, took some profit just as a test, you know, managed to catch a good move and take some profit, but I want to get more As we can see, if we look at the 4-hour chart again, or rather the daily chart, the potential here is huge. Even if we tone down our enthusiasm a bit, say to 0.05, somewhere in this zone, there's still a huge move from these levels because we've already had a certain impulse. If we look at it optimistically, there's a chance to catch some crazy move here. This position isn't opened for just one day. Of course, it's open for a possible breakout with a fix, consolidation, and so on. But if we see that Ethereum is currently relevant and there's potential, this position can be held for 2, 3, even 4 months. Keep in mind that there's also funding, of course, and all sorts of squeezes, like the ones that happened here, for example, or where else. Well, here we actually had a short squeeze, yes. But if we go back, say, to 2021, let's take a look at how the situation played out there. Well, just like that. So we had this strong uptrend starting in the spring, then a range, October, and then you go December. In general, you could have entered quite well here too. And what's also very interesting is that I often drew these kinds of things here in 2016 as well. Yes, also dumps. Here in 2016, Ethereum was also doing very badly. And here too, there were great moves in terms of working out the long side. For some reason, many people don't know that you can trade not only assets, but also, roughly speaking, indices. You can trade the ratio of one cryptocurrency to another cryptocurrency. That's also, not to say it's a bad idea. It's less popular, but it's quite straightforward. You can also short, for example, the Bitcoin dominance chart. I drew that we could get a bounce, and we did get a local one, but it turned out to be small here. So basically, we just had a pause, a small bounce. It would be cool to scatter limit orders at levels like 62, 63% if we get there and try to short the dominance. Well, it makes sense if we're having an Ethereum season that smoothly transitions into an altcoin season to try to make money off that as well. How can we profit from dominance? Well, logically, it's going to drop, right? Especially if Bitcoin doesn't go any higher. So everything could change right now. The situation could flip again. And we've had moments like this before, after which we got wiped out in the same way. Naturally, here we set a stop, say, just above the high with a loss that we're comfortable with, or maybe at some local high. And we try to hold the position aiming for around 53, 54%, maybe a bit lower, but well, you get the idea. We'll see over time how well this approach works out. We'll come back to this chart a bit later, maybe in a month or two, and then we'll analyze our potential setup. As for the overall chart of the Bitcoin or altcoin season, we can see that right now we're kind of in the middle. Yeah, we're gradually moving toward the altcoin season, and at this point we're already in that middle area. So the Bitcoin season has ended for now, and that's a good thing. We're confidently moving toward the middle, so to speak, of the range. We're already at 43, which is roughly the average boundary. So we are smoothly heading toward the altcoin season. This is where the euphoria will be. That's why there's no euphoria right now. I can see it in the chats, especially in our chat. It's quiet. In other words, people don't want to do anything. They don't want to learn about crypto for some reason, and that's a huge mistake. Today, a guy wrote in the comments and said that a rate cut means the market will fall, like it's a bad thing. It wouldn't hurt to at least learn, I don't know, okay, even if you're too lazy to study or not interested, just open ChatGPT and read about what a rate cut is, what cheap loans are, what a rate hike is, what expensive loans are, what liquidity withdrawal from the market means, how it all works, and so on. In reality, there's nothing complicated about it, but for some reason, people just slack off. They skip over it, right? They don't want to understand the market to buy into it, either because they don't have the money or they just don't want to figure it out, even though really everyone has the opportunity. After all, everyone goes to work, does something, and so on. Because people slack off, they're now going to badmouth crypto when it starts to grow those who missed out, and they'll do everything they can to make sure no one else makes money, God forbid. But it's better to take care of your own capital and try to, well, that's my advice to you. Just try to grow your own capital, because trying to knock someone else off their path, well, I think that's an activity that only drains your energy. That's why we're actually seeing a decrease in interest rates. And a decrease in rates means an injection of new liquidity. Because loans become cheaper, people take out loans, especially in America, and they invest this money into their businesses, into funds, into crypto, developing the economy. As a result, the money supply naturally grows, and that's what leads to inflows into the market. Well, basically, it all makes sense here. After that, we experience a crisis because there's already too much money in the economy, the interest rate has been low for too long, inflation has accelerated significantly, and then they start fighting inflation, that is, they raise the interest rate. So if you didn't know this, well, this is the basics, and it's essential because without it, it's simply impossible to develop in crypto right now since everything is interconnected. Okay, Another point, our fear and greed index is at 73% towards greed. This scares a lot of people right now. In reality, I wouldn't say that it's scary. When we reach extreme greed, right here at the peak, and stay there for a long time, at least for a month, then it will be time to start thinking about it. And when there's a flood of news, when literally everyone and their dog is in crypto, then yes, right now we're just a bit greedy locally and the corrections have cooled people off. It wouldn't be bad to see a slightly deeper local correction, right? Even though I'm a bull, it would actually be nice to cool people off a bit. Yeah, but for now, they don't want to let that happen. I think it's very unlikely. As for the news, there's some really big news that officially came out today. Donald Trump signed a law on stablecoins. This actually came out yesterday, but now it's confirmed, so to speak, now it's completely official. US President Donald Trump signed the Genius Act, which sets regulations for stablecoins and is the first significant piece of legislation for the crypto industry in the country. Just so you understand, America has wanted to sign and implement this law for a very long time. Trump has been working toward this for a long time, and this is a historic event because, let me remind you, back in 2017, crypto was considered almost a scam, something bad with losses. And so even America talked about it that way. But now, with a law like this is really significant. The Genius Act establishes a requirement for stablecoins to be fully backed by liquid assets and mandates annual audits for issuers with a market capitalization of over $50 billion. The law prohibits paying interest or any other income to stablecoin holders and also sets out regulatory guidelines for foreign companies in this sector. That's really cool. It's also really cool, by the way, that different banks are now starting to allow, well, not all banks, but banks are gradually moving towards this. They're allowing deposits in Bitcoin or making deposits in Bitcoin and taking out loans in Ether, Bitcoin, Solana. God, that's just so cool. Back when I first started learning about crypto, this was something you could only dream about because at that time it was all about anonymization. Like everything had to be anonymous. Well, there's been no real anonymity for a long time now. And crypto has moved to a completely different level. For example, here's some news like this as well. In Australia, they've launched mortgages backed by Bitcoin amid the housing crisis. If you think crypto isn't going to develop, well, then you definitely need to take some pills or something. Just look at how amazing this is. Yeah, and this is just insane what's happening. Also, Sharplink, who are currently the largest holders of Ethereum, will attract an additional $5 billion to buy more Ethereum. These guys decided that it's not enough for them. They need more, and they want to go big while they're still being offered a price, as I understand it, below 4K. They probably want to accumulate, just like MicroStrategy, but with Ethereum, and honestly, they're succeeding at it. As for Ethereum and the inflows into the ETF, take a look. Yesterday, there were also 420, 402 million. So they decided to close out the week with a pretty solid volume, and for Bitcoin, it was 363. So for the second day in a row, Ethereum is outpacing Bitcoin. That's quite an interesting situation as well. And look at what else has been added here. They've added Solana. There are inflows into Solana as well. Of course, for now, they're just small amounts. Overall, we can see from the 2nd of July, and because that's when they launched, that's when they officially started gathering inflows into the ETF. 92.8 million when the ETF was launched. Not bad. So 100 million has already come in. Of course, that's not much, but in the beginning, there wasn't much coming into Ethereum either. Now, Ethereum is already surpassing Bitcoin. And there, in just 2 or 3 days, almost 2 come in as well. That's why the same is expected for Solana. And here the numbers are really quite significant. So if you're expecting Ethereum to fall, I don't know what numbers you're waiting for, what values you're expecting, or what goals you even have in this market. That's all for today, friends. I've shared some interesting ideas and thoughts about the market. If you found this relevant, please give a like and subscribe to my top channel. Have a great evening, everyone, and goodbye.